It's good to be back with all the good friends. I got quite a few complaints that we missed a few weeks on the Bereshit, the day after Simchat Torah, that we didn't have a class. But Baruch Hashem, we're back. Winter, long 6-month winter now. Ele Toledot Noach. Parashat Noach is a parasha of when Hashem restarted the world. Noach ish tzaddik tamim haya bedorotav. Noach was a man of tzaddik. Tamim haya bedorotav. He was a complete tzaddik. Et Elohim et alech Noach. Hashem went along with him. So right away Rashi asks a question, why do we say the word bedorotav in his generation? Why was Noach only a tzaddik in his generation? He was a tzaddik. So yesh mirabotenu dorshim oto leshevach. There are those rabbis that explain it that was saying a compliment and praising Noach. Kol sheken sheilu haya bedor tzaddikim haya tzaddik yoter. If he was able to withstand all the challenges of that generation, for sure he could have withstood the challenges. Avi, come close. Of course, he could have withstood the challenges if he was in a generation of tzaddikim. V'yesh dorshim oto legnai. And there are those that understand this is as an embarrassment, as a negative. Lefi doro haya tzaddik. In the level of his generation, he was a tzaddik. Ve'ilu haya bedoro shel Avraham lo haya nechshav leklum. If he was in the generation of Avraham Avinu, he wouldn't have been considered anything. We know that the Torah comes from the Lashon of Hora'ah. It's coming to teach us something. I always had a very big question on this Rashi. We know there's a big movement. You have to learn Hilchot Lashon Hara. Right? There's a Hilchot Lashon Hara, a whole Sefer Chavetz Chaim that's built on Hilchot Lashon Hara. One of the big Mishnayot that we learn in Pirkei Avot says, Havedan et kol adam b'kav zechut. You could, if you have two ways how to look at a person, you have to judge him favorably. If we have a question when the Torah says Ledorotav for his generation, Yesh dorshim oto legnai, v'yesh dorshim oto leshevach. There are some that look at it as a negative and some that look at it as a positive. If I had the choice to look at you, Levi, if you're negative or positive, my chiyuv is to look at the positive side, right? No? The chiyuv. Yeah, Evedan et kol adam lekav zechut. So the Rashi comes and says, Yesh dorshim oto legnai, v'yesh dorshim oto leshvach. And there are two ways how to look at it. You could look at it as a compliment and you could look at it as a negative. Question is, how could we have even a tzad to look at it as a negative? It says further in the Pasuk, when Moshe Rabbeinu, when Hashem told Noach to take the animals into the teva, he speaks and he says, Vayomer Hashem leNoach, take everything into the teva. And he says, Min habehema teora umin habehema asher enena teora. From the animals that were kosher, how many did he take? How many pairs did he take? Seven. And from the animals that weren't kosher, how many did he take? 2 pairs. 2 pairs. Now, the Pasuk says, Min habehema hateora, from the behema that's the tahor one, umin habehema asher enena teora, and from the animals that are not tahor. So the question is, why does the Pasuk say, Min habehema asher enena teora, that the animals are not tahor? It should go and say simple. Min habehema teora, you take 7. Umin habehema teme'ah, you take 2. Why? And teme'ah is how many letters? Taf, mem, aleph, he? Is hateme'ah is 5 letters. Asher enena teora is 13 letters. We know every letter in the Torah has a message. Every letter in the Torah has a purpose. So why does the Torah elaborate so long and say Asher Enena Torah? Says the Mefarshim on the pasuk over there that the Torah is coming to teach you clean language. You don't say that a person's a bad person. You say a person's not a good person. You don't say negativity. A lot of people, they like to speak negative. Today in our language, negative is like hip, it's like cool to say bad about people. You sound smart, you sound intelligent. The Torah teaches us that you have to be very sensitive how you speak. You can't say negativity. You say that it's not tahor. Don't say teme'ah. But then, there's a big question on this. The pasuk in Parashat Shemini discusses all the animals that are not kosher. What does it say in the pasuk? Et hagamal male gerahu tamehu lachem. Next pasuk says, Vet hashafan male gerahu parsa lo yafriz. What does it say? Tamehu lachem. Vet arnevet. What is arnevet? Temeahi. Vet hachazir tamehu lachem. Mibesaram lo tochelu, b'nivlatam lo tigau. Torah says on all the animals, tameh, 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 tameh. Why all of a sudden over here when we're telling the animals that Noach should go take the animals into the teva, we don't say tameh. All we say is, Asher enena teorah. Why don't we say Asher enena teorah? So I once heard a beautiful concept. Benny, I told this to David last night. He understood what I was saying. A lot of times people ask a question to a rabbi or a friend or a child to a parent. And a lot of you parents could connect to this concept. Your child asks you, Abba, could I do something? We'll see, we'll this, let's talk about it. What happens? Does the kid do it or doesn't do it? Look at Benny's face. For sure he doesn't. Why? Because you didn't tell him? No. You hear that? The minute you give the child a little option to think that it's yes, even though you said no in other words, but what did they hear? Yes. Avi's laughing because his kids do the same thing to him, but he did it to his parents also.
Chain reaction.
Right? You ask your father something, Abba, could I do this and that and that? What does he say? Let's see, we'll talk about it, right? You know you have kids. If you don't tell them no, what is it?
Yes.
It's yes. When the Torah is telling you the halachot, when you say halachot, when you say how you should live and how you should act, you got to be clear. You say tameh. Because if the guy is going to say Asher enena Torah, if the Torah is chas v'shalom going to say Asher enena Torah, somebody, it's not tahor, but it's not so bad, Rabbi. You know, you have these people that ask you questions, and if you don't tell them that it's like eating pork, they'll say, I said you're not supposed to do that. Oh, Rabbi, you're not supposed to do that. That's only for rabbis, but for me, I could do it. If you don't say no, it's yes. Am I correct or not? You also have kids, right? Until you tell them clearly, it's yes. So the Torah, when it talks to us what's the halakha of the animals, then the Torah is very clear. Tameh, tameh, tameh.
Also it says it's tameh to you. So it's mean that for somebody else, for goyim, it's not tameh.
Right. Goyim is a different concept. But now that you say the term Asher enena tehorah, that it's not tahor, when we're talking, Noach wasn't doing anything that was a halakha. When we're talking to Noach, when we're saying Asher enena tehorah, we're not telling Noach the halakha. Noach, you take a giraffe, you take a donkey, you take a cow, you take all different types of animals. So when you're talking, and the point could be clear without being explicit in negativity, then you have to speak as edel, as adin as possible. Because if you Torah, Dibrat Torah, people, this is first before we get to the next concept that I want to say something about Chamovadia with it. But if you don't think about this, people we think talk is cheap. There's a certain adinut hanefesh. How do you say adinut in English? I don't know a word in English to say adinut.
Lightness.
What?
Gentleness. Adin. Gentle.
Gentle is a good word, but there's even, you could say even better. What?
Delicate.
Delicate, adinut, you talk delicately. There's a certain adinut. Diplomatic is sheker. Diplomatic is sheker. But adinut means to say that a person speaks adin. He doesn't speak like the street, he doesn't speak like he's in the hood. He speaks like, what?
In Russian, it's last.
He's not asking in Russian.
So, I want to go back to this yesh doshim oto legnai v'yesh doshim oto leshevach. If the Torah is saying that we could look at it at Noach in a negative way, that means to say the Torah is coming to teach us something. If the Torah is saying a musad, when the Torah says about the tribes, Hashem is going to say Lashon Hara, the only time you're allowed to say Lashon Hara is when you're going to learn from it. If I go say that you sold your brother, am I allowed to go tell that to somebody? You're not allowed to say it because it's Lashon Hara. So if the Torah, anytime the Torah says something negative about somebody, it must be for a point. Yesh dorshim oto legnai v'yesh dorshim oto leshevach. How does it, this yesh v'yesh means there's not, Rashi doesn't say davar acher. Whenever Rashi has two explanations, he says davar acher. You could learn it or way A or way B. But yesh v'yesh means you could learn it both ways, and both ways could work together. And I would like to bring out a very important example. A lot of people, let's say for example, a guy learns Daf Yomi. He's satisfied with Daf Yomi. His neighbor doesn't learn even that hour. His neighbor wakes up late, prays at home 10 minutes, and I go every morning to shul. And I have a chavruta for an hour. So what do you do when you come home? I should not waste my time. But why doesn't he feel obligated to learn at that time when he has free time?
Because he did his thing already.
Because he feels he did his thing already. And it's great that he should feel like that. But a person that's really great doesn't judge his success by his next door neighbor. I'm saying a very important yesod over here. Most of us, we judge ourselves by our neighbor. A person like the Rambam says, the ikra influence happens from your sevivav. Adam nimshach acharei sevivav. A person is influenced by his neighbors, by the people who he knows. So if you're living in a community that learning is 1 hour a day, and you learn 2 hours a day, you're not going to learn 3. Because to do 3, you need an extra motivation. You need an extra push. Because the neighbor is not motivating you to go learn that 3rd hour. Because the neighbor only learns 1 hour, so once you're learning 2 hours, you're doing better. You get the concept? People are influenced by their surroundings. Yesh dorshim oto legnai. You know what was the chisaron of Noach? He had a great ma'ala, that he was able to combat his next door neighbor that was doing a sin. He didn't do the sin. He was able to study Torah and build a teva and go and be a good Jew. He was able to do everything the correct way. Everybody was doing the wrong way. But you know what happened? He stopped over there. Yesh dorshin oto legnai means there is a person, there is a concept in the Hanagah, in the way Noach dealt, that wasn't positive. That he didn't strive to be the best. He didn't strive to be a tzaddik even in the generation of Avraham Avinu. Today we're living a generation that's Dora Mabul. Every person that's here now and comes here throughout the week is Yesh Dorshin Oto L'Shevach. We're living in a generation that everybody's pursuing money, everybody's pursuing pleasures, and a person finally comes to the yeshiva, Yesh Dorshin Oto L'Shevach. How could you say that the guy's not a great person? Look at him, he's unbelievable. But then there's a problem. Yesh Dorshin Oto L'Gnai, you know why? You could do a lot more. And a person has to have this in life. A person has a shul, he builds a shul, happy with the shul. Build more shiurim, build more Torah. People are saying, there's such a concept called Shalom Alay Nafshi, I'm happy with what I do. I have my schedule, this, that, I'm not going to push myself more. I'm not going to do another class. I'm not going to learn more people. I'm not going to, why not? Chacham Ovadia, any Gadol Ador that was ever in the history of the world, didn't judge himself success, didn't judge his success by looking at his neighbor. That's why I'm mentioning it. Tonight is his yard site. That's why I'm mentioning it. A Gadol Ador can only become one way. Eddie, what happened?
I'm going to go around.
The only way that a Gadol Ador could be produced is Yesh Dorshin Oto L'Shevach, that he doesn't go only by his next door neighbor. He looks at his success by what happens if I would have been in the time of Rabbi Akiva Eger. What would I have been in the time of the Rashba, or the Rambam, of the Beit Yosef? The minute you're trying to strive for that, your level, the bar goes a lot higher. The bar is set very low in our generation. But the bar, they say from one of the Gedolim, that if I wouldn't have wanted to be the Shagat Aryeh, I wouldn't have even be who I am today. That means if you don't strive for the best, you don't even become second-class citizen. Chacham Ovadia, with his Mesirut Nefesh, with his, everybody knows his house in Rehov HaKablan. Rehov HaKablan was a beautiful house. And all the pictures come from that house. I was zocher, when I was in yeshiva, he used to take me to his house. I used to walk him home. One time he wanted to send books to America. So he asked me to go. I used to go pray there when I was learning Aponovich. When I had an off Shabbat, I used to go to Chacham Ovadia's minyan. How many people do you think prayed over there? In Bet Knesset Gadol, 30 people, 40 people. It wasn't hard to get in. It wasn't you didn't need no, like they say, protectia. Connection. No connection. I used to schmooze him, I used to walk him home in the street with nobody else, sometimes. What? Years later, just to knock on the door, you had to put down $50,000. But in those days, you just walked into shul, you walked with him home. He had no house. You know what the walls of his house were? Metals, the cheapest, the junkiest bookcase over here is more expensive than 3 of his bookcases. His bookcases were made out of, you ever go to these warehouses, they have those metals with those shelves? That was his bookcases. Wow. And you didn't, from the hallway, they had a little hallway to go into his house, and there was no walls. I don't know if they ever painted the walls.
Just beams, like sheetrock?
No, it was covered with books. Oh. So you didn't see no walls. From the hallway to the house, you didn't see nothing. You didn't see walls. I remember I walked into the hallway and I saw the only books. Only books. He didn't say, you know what? I'm happy the way I am. He kept on going. At 75, Hashem paid him back big time. But Rav David Yosef...
At 75, they realized who he was?
No, they realized what he was, but he had challenges. He had people that were opposed to him. He had people that fought with him, people that, you're in the limelight, you got into trouble. They voted him out. They made laws in the Knesset just that he can't be the chief rabbi again. I remember speaking to his son about there's a law A lot to talk about. But David Yosef, I don't know if they printed the story in the book, Rav David Yosef once said over that there was a meeting, Rabbi Yashiv and Chacham Ovadia in his house. And his mother was under the table nursing the baby. Because they only had one bedroom. And if she would go into the room, it would wake up the kids. So the only place that she had available to go and nurse the baby was under the table where the rabbis were talking and learning. That's Bedorotav. That's not in our generation. That's hundreds of years back. And that's why he became who he was. Any Gadol Ador that ever was successful is this. Neria over here, he comes every day to learn. He thinks he's the greatest kid, right, Neria? Neria. I said, Neria comes every day to learn. He thinks he's the greatest kids. How many kids in his situation not even cracking a book? They're busy with school, they're busy with college, and they don't learn. But no, that's not the way a Yid has to feel. A Jew has to feel that he has to yesh dorshim oto legnai, v'yesh dorshim oto l'shevach, that a person has to go and try to do the best that he could do. If you learn an hour a day, try to do 2. If you pray one time with a minyan, try to do twice with a minyan. If you have one shoe, build 2 shoes. Don't ever hesitate on anything, because Hashem doesn't want us to stop. If you look at your next door, I'm much better than my neighbor. My other neighbor's dafuk. He can't even put it together minyan. Look, I have a shul, that's it. I don't need no more headaches. No, you don't have to look at your generation. You have to strive for the stars. And that's the success of a Jewish person. The Torah is not saying Lashon Hara on Noach. The Torah is saying how we should live. Yesh dorshin oto legnai v'yesh dorshin oto l'shevach. A person, a Jew, has to know that the success is only when he strives for the stars.
So why does it say Tamim?
Because even in his generation, he was perfect.
Perfect means like perfect, no?
Perfect means in your situation you're perfect, but you could still be more perfect. A person could always be more perfect. A person could always be more perfect. מה? אם הוא רוצה, אבל לא להסתכל לשכן שלו. שבת שלום ומבורך, חודש טוב ומבורך, תשבי רפואה שלמה ומרים בת יוכבד, and שבי לעילוי נשמת Ovadia Yosef ben Georgia, that is your side, is tonight, and everybody, if they could learn a Mishnah or a Halacha extra for him, doesn't hurt. It helps. It helps, of course it helps.